Fly Fishing Insider Podcast is teamed up with Fly Fish Finder app to revolutionize your fishing adventures. Save time and unlock the ultimate experience with access to 55,000 trout streams, precise bridge data, thousands of trails, and detailed species locations. Elevate your angling with real-time maps, top camping spots, and connect with local fly shops for expert tips. This is only a little bit of what is available on the app. Discover all of it on the Fly Fish Finder app, another tool for getting better at catching fish anytime, anywhere, and for any species. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. It's me, your host, Christian Bacasa. I'm really happy this week to bring on a special guest, Peter Van Der Grift. Peter Van Der Grift is with North Point Brands, which is Cheeky, Wingo, and you added two new ones. I'm going to let you introduce those because I think that is really cool and important. A great, whatever you want to call it, grouping of people in the fly fishing industry. Today, we're going to talk about two, I think, really cool things. One is love and uniqueness of DIY fishing. Peter has had the opportunity to fish in both elements, whether he was a guide, has been guided, but he also has a very deep passion on DIY. And there's an importance to that I think, or a uniqueness to that is very special and people could take advantage of and maybe don't take advantage of quite enough. So we're going to talk about that. The last thing is creating an outdoors kid through either parenting or mentorship. Peter, being the CMO over at North Point Brands, has a very creative background and described some things to me that I thought were absolutely fantastic. And I think it's a great way for you to maybe pass some of those things on, whether it's to your own child or to a friend or a grandchild or a nephew, etc. You always seem to run in the smaller, younger guys, whether it's at the TU club meeting or whatever, that is exciting. And these are some great things that you could pass on there. So as always, give us a follow on the podcast. Check us out on YouTube at Fly Fishing Insider Podcast and go to the website, www.ffipodcast.com. We'd love to have you on there reading some of our articles, etc., and we'll go from there. So Peter, hey, welcome to the show. It's been great getting to know you, etc. You guys have a absolutely wonderful brand. I've actually gone up for the Cheeky tournament and had some fun there. But you guys have grown significantly, and you've been I would say, a forefront player in a couple areas. I think you and I discussed, anodization was a huge one. The anodization process that you have right now is extremely unique. It's a top tier anodization process, very smooth, etc. But you were one of the first to do that. People a lot of times don't really maybe recognize Cheeky as that much of a leader in the product, and it's really cool to have that position in place.
Yeah, well, thank you, Christian, for having me on the podcast here. And yeah, one of the things I think we're really proud of at Cheeky Fishing is sort of being the first to have these brighter colors, right? Really breaking away from the traditional blacks and grays of reels and really bringing color to the forefront. And, when we started that 12, almost 13 years ago, it was really... I think some people reacted poorly to it and said, oh gosh, they're so flashy and blingy and all this stuff. And we stuck to our guns. We have a few things that are our core beliefs when it comes to product, smooth drag, really attractive colored reels, and then this really smooth startup inertia on drags where, it's just the smoothest drag on the planet, we believe. So we really stuck to our guns, and now you sort of see the rest of the industry that might have been more traditional have, hydro dipping and different colored reels and whatnot. So,
yep.
I think that we're really proud of that with Cheeky Fishing. We've grown that line quite a bit, from just fly reels to we do lines, we do tippets, leaders, and other, accessories that really focus on that DIY angler. I mean, that's really who we feel our core consumer are those folks that sleep in the back of their Toyota pickup truck so they can be the first on the river.
That's right.
On the weekend, they work hard all week, and we try to over deliver for what our prices are. We want to bring kind of that that elite technology and bring it to the masses, so to speak, the Robin Hood of fly fishing. Our other brand, Wingo, was started in 2016 and really started focusing on a lot of webbing products, wading belts, dog collars. And just recently, we've really transformed that into a brand that's really focusing on that intersection of dog and outdoor. So, people who paddleboard with their dog, take them in the boat, like to hike with them, like to run with them. And, we've really, focused on what's good for that person as well as that dog. We just released 7 new dog products, including, a bunch of collars, leashes, harnesses, a packed dog bed that's really cool, some bandanas. And so really, really looking to take that into this space that we feel is underserved. And we feel like, we've got decades of outdoor experience that we can now bring to the pet owner.
Well, it's a lifestyle thing in so many ways. If you are into the outdoors, it's like having a dog is almost second nature, right? I mean, there's almost 2 elements, like those that hate the dogs and then those that like love having the dogs at the club. And even those that hate them, they love the dog. They just don't necessarily love the interaction that they're having at that time. And
absolutely,
it's such a cool environment. I've run through it, whether it be climbing or backcountry skiing or whatever. But fly fishing, it's and I got 4 dogs, so I'm a dog lover.
There you go, love it. Well, I mean, in fishing in particular, having a dog that you can take fishing with you, like I hear your dog's in the background. My dog, my black lab Susie, I mean, she's the best fishing dog I've ever had, right? She doesn't disturb the water. When you're in the boat, she has a spot on top of the dry box, and that is just where she just lies down there the entire time. It's kind of raised up a little. She can see everything that's going on, and you forget she's there. And she comes with us on all our family adventures, as well as all of my, adventures I have with fishing friends. So
they're part of the family. And they're part of the extended family too. It's funny, you go out, and I know some of my buddies are always like, "Oh, it's so and so, or it's this dog or that dog," and or "Where's the dog?" It's
right. Where's
really
the dog? Their dog friends like to get together, and many people who don't have dogs because maybe they like to travel more, or maybe it's they're just not in a place that can can accommodate a dog. They're able to really attach themselves to your pet and really look forward to seeing them. So pets in the outdoors go together. Pets and fishing can go together if done properly. I'm an upland bird hunter, so my dog's a great pheasant dog, and she just loves that as much as and when I didn't have a dog for a small spell, I stopped hunting pheasant because what's the point? It was really about my connection with the dog and everything else. So, the other thing I would say is, we're just talking about North Point brands. Just recently here, we were able to do something that's just really exciting, which is bring on 2 new brands, which are Rep Your Water and Rep Your Wild. These were started by the doctors, Corinne and Garrison Doctor, who are just awesome people. And their team was able to join our team. And now North Point Brands has 4 brands that are underneath of us. They do this wonderful apparel, hats and shirts and drinkware and other products. They have a net that they're coming out with, just really, really interesting stuff. And it's all kind of comes from this idea that we love the waters that we fish, and we want to represent them in some ways. So, one of their first kind of breakthrough products was the Colorado flag and some fishing stuff that kind
apparel,
of that integrated into that. And they've done that for all 50 states and different species, and you can really represent what your passions are on your apparel or on your hat. Expressing that when you're on the water, I think is really what we're kind of all about. And they've got a very strong conservation ethos, which we have a very strong conservation ethos. So really happy to have them on board.
The marriage between the businesses, to me, is it's a great combination. And I
Hmm.
think the way that I look at it is, um, from the Rep Your Water scenario, obviously they're two, it's a small company that just grew massively over time. And,
Hmm.
it's very difficult to continue that at a certain standpoint. And you go and look at what are the right resources that I need to have in place. And I really look at it as a brand conservation,
Hmm.
um, move,
Yeah.
because I think the two of you marry very well,
Yeah.
in whether it's livelihood and length of livelihood, mission, direction,
Hmm.
conservation, uniqueness of products, et cetera, and really kind of sticking together in a lot of those things. So I'm really happy to see that happen. I think they're a great brand. One of the
Yeah.
things I've
Thank you.
always loved about Rep Your Water is their position when it comes to social media and things like that.
Hmm.
It is absolute that they love angling and all angling.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we drive that? And
Hmm.
it's like I have my Rep Your Water Louisiana t-shirt. I don't know.
Hmm.
Somebody gave it to me when I went on a Reg trip, and it's like one of my favorites because I love fishing in
Yeah.
Louisiana. There's
Yeah.
something about that ability to, I guess, represent where you've
Hmm.
been and what you do. And it's really cool. And we as fly fishers, I think we jive with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We
In
wear
some
the
ways,
we
it's
wear the flannel
yeah.
shirts. We wear
Yeah.
the the fishing pants that are our
Yeah.
regular pants.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. So it's really cool.
Well, I mean, I think I think also like we don't our trophies don't hang on the wall. I mean, like, we've got some photos and whatnot here, but like no one really does fish mounts anymore. No one keeps fish, right? Like I don't know anybody who keeps fish, right? So you don't go down to Louisiana and like bring back the trophy of a freezer full of fish.
Right,
You bring
right.
back those memories, and in a lot of ways, you want something to remember it by. And so I think things like, and it's also like when you're out and about. I mean, how many times have you been in a airport, wherever in the giant Houston airport,
Yep,
and you see someone walk by with a squalla hat or walk by with a Rep Your Water hat or something, or
yep.
when I was at Costa and we were really involved with the fly fishing film tour. I mean, I'd see the fly fishing film tour hat, and I was really happy to see that because it had said Costa right on it, and
Yeah.
it would give you you would knew who those people were, and you had an instant connection with them. And like we'll talk about later, Christian, like just the mentorship idea. You can take a 15-year-old kid and an 85-year-old great grandfather and put them together with fly fishing as their common thread, and they are going to find so many similarities
Oh
where
yeah.
these two people are so maybe so far apart on every spectrum. So
Right, right. And
it's the
it's funny
great
because fishing in general will go even further. So I wrote a book, co-authored a book called Fly Fishing for Leadership,
Mhm,
and it was all business leaders that had gone fly fishing or do fly fish, and they tell their stories
mhm.
of what they learned on the river and how they apply it to work. What
Yeah.
was really unique is so many people read that book that were not fly fishermen, but
Mhm,
they had caught a fish or they had gone fishing once.
mhm.
And like you said, it was like all of a sudden it's a common language. They don't know all the technique and differences of fly fishing, et cetera. They didn't really
Mhm.
care, but they had that
Right.
common knowledge of that feeling of, getting out on the water and waiting and anticipating or
Yeah.
hooking and losing or whatever it is. But there's that common ground. It's really cool.
Mhm. Well,
So
you
we
have
get,
to. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, I mean, you have to put your work in, and so like the similarities between like a fishing day, especially a DIY fishing day,
Mm-hmm.
do it yourself fishing day, and a work day, they're really similar, right? Like you're trying to accomplish something, you have to put the work in. The more expertise you have, the more, maybe the more likelihood you have for it to be
Mm-hmm.
successful. And you have those small accomplishments throughout the day of fishing where I think to be an engaged employee, you have to have those accomplishments throughout your day in
Yep.
order to feel fulfilled, right? And
Yep.
like, and in a lot of ways, you're not like when you're releasing the fish, you're not taking it with you. You don't have the quarry, you don't have the calories, the protein that you're taking home or
Yep.
whatever. And in the same way, in a work day, a lot of times you're doing it on your computer. You don't have those things that you can physically take back with you.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to be engaged, you have to find those wins throughout the day. And and I think that there's that really good employees, which I mean, we have just an amazing team at North Point Brands. Like, I really think that they've adapted that mindset where they're, they follow through, right? Like, we don't have anyone who leaves something behind. And I think that that's a really something that you could learn from fishing if you pay
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah. And it, DIY in particular is
Mhm.
problem solving.
Yes.
And I love how you made the comparison to work, because in any work situation, you may have a title, but your primary title is problem solver. I am
Right.
problem solver of marketing. I am problem solver of uh, taxes. I am problem
Mhm.
solver of invoicing. I am problem solver of sales, design, et cetera, et cetera. You are always a problem solver. That is your ultimate role, but it's within your niche. And it's just like
Mhm.
say a football team, we all lived and died by Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots for years now, because his big quote was, do your job.
Mhm.
Right? You're a problem solver for the line. You're a problem solver for receivers. You're
Yeah.
a problem solver for, just go down the list, and it's come true in so many facets, right?
Mhm.
I think it's just so unique to understand it from that perspective, because it's so broad, but it's also so niche and unique at the same time,
Yeah.
that you can really take away from that. And as anglers, I think we're all natural problem solvers. Like, how do
No
we catch the
question.
fish? It's just a natural evolution of solving the problem of how to catch the fish. What's the bait that we want to use? What's the fly? What's the depth? What's
Mhm.
the weight? What's the drag? I mean, you can go down all those lists. So really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, just one more like comment on kind of the work relationship, then the problem solver relationship with fly fishing with work. I mean, I think that that's something that, over the years of sort of developing career wise, that I think is really that I've kind of been on both ends of it, is like empowering people to be that decision maker, right? Like
mhm.
empowering them, like, I really love when someone, maybe a junior staff member will kind of take it on themselves to solve a problem that we have in the business. And one of the pillars that we have at North Point Brands is this, we're a democratic brand. Any idea can come from any level, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
not all, the even product wise, like some of our greatest products have come from people that were even temporary workers. Like, if you have an
Yeah.
idea, like, bring it. Like, no, there are no dumb questions, there are no dumb ideas. Let's talk about them, because what people might attach to, from a product or a process, even if it's not my cup of tea, like, I think that it's my job as CMO to try to think about what the greater fishing community or outdoor community, if we're talking
Right.
about dog community,
Yeah.
might see in a product, or an advertisement, or a film or a photograph. And I
Right.
think those things can be really fun and complex. And this element of fishing, which has been a staple for me my entire life, right? I made
Yeah.
every dime of my life in fly fishing, every dime.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really, well, that's not quite true. When I was in high school and middle school, I worked in restaurants. So I did make some money there. And I think that that's a
You
great
spent the
talk.
money in fly fishing,
I
though.
spent the money in fly fishing, but went on to be a guide. In my late teens, I started
Yeah.
guiding, and actually paid for my college. And then I worked as a guide when I got out of college. I worked in Alaska at a flyout camp, and then in Missoula for a long time, and then started my own outfitting business in Livingston, Montana. And that sort of led me into. There was a time that I had an outfitting business. I also worked at the
Yeah.
local newspaper, so I would write 4 days a week and put my Friday story in on Thursday. And then I would guide, 3 days, and I had 5 guides working for me, and that kind of, and then sort of had the realization that, boy, kids are coming down the pipe here, and something has to happen. And my wife actually, in our rival newspaper, saw an ad for a
Ah,
job at Sims Fishing Products, and I went over there and worked for some wonderful people over there, including Diane Bristol, who's like my all-time favorite person in the entire industry. And from there, I went on and worked at Costa Sunglasses at a really interesting time. Both of those brands were in really big growth spurts and big expansions
Yeah.
into direct consumer, expansions into general fishing and bass fishing, and then on to Costa, which was really at the cornerstone of community marketing and cause marketing. And so I learned a whole lot there. And then, almost 4 years ago, Ted over at North Point Brands said, "Hey, there's a great opportunity for you to come over and lead these two brands and maybe more in the future." And it really gave me the opportunity to take things that I had learned really from fishing all the
Yeah.
way through and put them into practice. And really, my goal at the company is to make a place that a does that shows the right way that a for-profit consumer brand should operate in a world that is ripe with problems with water, land, and whatnot.
Hmm.
So we have to give back as much as we take.
Yep.
I want a place that people are inspired to work for, who want to come and work at the company. And I couldn't have had a bigger piece of flattery than when Corinne and Garrison said one of the reasons we want to come to North Point Brands is to learn from you, Peter. And I have a lot to learn from them. I mean, an
Yeah.
incredible amount to learn from them. But that's really inspiring. And the third part is to really bring fly fishing to people who may not have the opportunity to experience it. It can be an exclusive, expensive sport. I
Yep.
don't think it needs to be. It's not the way that I came into the sport. I think there's a pathway for anyone in there. And I think DIY angling is
Yeah.
such a rewarding thing. And not to say, like, experience as a guide. I've been with guides. I've been with lodges. I've gone to some pretty cool places. But when I think back of my top 5 fish, they're probably not the biggest fish of that species I've even caught, but it's because of the scenarios I've caught them.
Right. The story
The
behind them.
story. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. And the problem solving, right? They weren't, none of those great fish were easy fish. Most of
No.
them were difficult,
Yeah.
right? And
You
they were
saw
difficult.
it, or
Yeah.
you had a assumption that something was
Yeah.
going on,
Yep.
and then you started to break down the problem
Yep.
step
Yep.
by step. And
Yep.
and what I find is, I'm assuming it's the same for you and a lot of people, is that when you start to break down a problem step by step, and it's success, success,
Hmm.
success, and then ultimate success,
Hmm.
it's it's not um it's not fishing. It becomes
Hmm.
hunting.
Right. Sure.
And I started here. My goal was to get to here, and I did that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I in there.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Right? Like, I made I, and I think
Yeah.
there's a self gratification with identifying yourself as the winner, right?
Yeah.
In that scenario. And
Yeah.
even though it's a pea brain fish, right?
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
But hey, I did that. I did that.
Yeah.
And that's so cool. And I'll tell you, I mean, this is a great segue to get into our topic today. But,
Hmm.
you, like you said, you've been fishing since you were a kid. You went
Hmm.
through guiding. You then
Hmm.
moved to guiding locations. You did a
Hmm.
guiding business. And then you went into the industry, and you've moved around the industry. So you're obviously very well versed in industry. But then I look around the room that you're in right now. There's fish photos on the wall. There's
It's
fly tying stuff everywhere. There's a bow on the wall. You are, by heart, an outdoors guy that loves the sports.
yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's really cool, because when you talked to me earlier, you had
Hmm.
said, I would really like to talk about DIY, because I get more enjoyment out of that. I've been privy
Hmm.
to situations where I've been either, be able to go out on a company dime, or I've been able to go on a trip that is expensive. And those are fun. Those are great. And I
Yeah.
learn in them. And everybody should hopefully have an opportunity in their lifetime to do that. But some of the best moments I've had in my own personal vacations, I like to do DIY. So if you can break that down for us a little bit,
Yeah.
I would love that.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, look, one of the things that makes the fly fishing industry so exciting, and such a great place to be, it is not the money. There's so many people I know that are so talented that could go to another industry and make far more money. Maybe myself included, maybe not. But but certainly the reason that we're in it, there's not another industry in which every single person in it also does the thing on their off time. Like it's also all of our favorite hobbies, right? And so that
Yeah.
kind of gives us this and it's also why like authenticity matters, right? Like we're all very, very, there's not a more authentic industry out there, because I
Hmm.
think everybody also does the thing, so they can just sniff out when things are inauthentic. Like that's kind of like how I feel about fly fishing, right? Is
Yeah.
like the authenticity of catching that fish. I mean, it's and like and we have a saying in our household: don't yuck anyone else's yum. And like I feel the same way. If someone wants, all they want to do is go on a guided trip and catch the absolute most giant fish possible of that species, and they're willing and they want to spend that money, and that's what they want to do, and they love having the fisher picture of them with the big fish,
Yep.
like there is space for you in our industry.
Yeah.
I mean,
I,
if there,
I can't
there's
agree
lots of space.
more. I
Yeah.
can't agree more. I just recorded a tip about, and it's coming out here soon on our YouTube channel, but
Mhm.
it's about ignoring the elitist BS. Like
No
it's,
question. Yeah. Yeah.
there's way too much out there for you personally to worry
Yeah.
about someone else specifically, one.
Yeah.
And two, it doesn't matter if they want to go about it
Yeah.
one way and you want to go about it a different way. Hey, all the more
That's right.
power to you. Everybody has their own different goals. It's really
A-
cool. And one
Absolutely.
of the things I love, you talk about our industry, is
Mhm.
the cross-pollination aspect.
Yeah.
So, you and I fish.
Mhm.
I know you hunt. I've hunted
Mhm.
before. You
Mhm.
ski. I
Mhm.
ski. You could go down the list of like
Right.
how many different elements of outdoors and lifestyle that you really cross pollinate in, and it's so unique. And even if you may not have skied before or may not have hunted before, but
Mhm.
you fly fish, you
Yeah.
know enough people, and I've had enough conversations on the fringe of that you have some kind of relation. Oh, he's like my buddy Jim.
Mhm.
He's like
Mhm.
my friend Alice, et cetera, et cetera. So I
Right.
think that's just so cool to see and really unique. And that's one of the things I really like about the North Point brands is it has a
Mhm.
lot of that cross pollination type stuff
For
going on. Very
for
cool.
sure, and the DIY angler is like at the core of what we think about, and like we are all, our group is much more of a DIY angler group of people that like to do it. We like to do it ourselves, and like I think that and like again, like the guide experience is also. I mean, like you get different things out of it,
Oh yeah.
and I've had a long career dealing with guides, being a guide, creating programs and whatnot. And what I would say is the best ones are the ones that are really able to put their ego on the shelf
Hmm.
and really meet that angler where that angler is. Whether it's their first guided trip, it's their first time fishing, or they're a seasoned expert, or anywhere in between. And I think my favorite thing about it was I mean, I loved the fish and
Yeah.
solving the problem in the boat, right? Like that was
Yeah.
me being able to take those DIY things and do them in the boat or do them weight fishing or whatever. And really, but it was really understanding I loved the people. That's what
Yeah.
I missed the most was the people. Not only the good ones, like, oh, you must have had some jerks. I'm like, yeah, but like problem solving that jerk to give them what they wanted and maybe change their perspective on their sport themselves, or their desires was really a fascinating thing. And I think meeting that angler where they are, identifying their personalities and what motivates them, like all of those things have served me so well in the other sides of my life. But for me personally, like I mean, I love figuring out new, and I love those other thing about fishing. Like we have this sort of common people and the sort of common
Hmm.
desires. It's also the common places, right? Like
Yes.
I've been
Fish don't live in
so
ugly places.
the fish they don't, and like even if you've never been to Missoula and never fished the Blackfoot, like you probably have a relationship with it in your mind,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
you can
That's a
talk
great point.
about it to someone and you want to learn about it. And like when I hear of someone who's gone to a place that I kind of like that I've wanted to go or caught a fish I've wanted to catch, like I just love digging in deep with them. And DIY angling can be anything from fishing your local water, fishing your backyard,
Yep.
fishing for new species, or adventure travel DIY, which
Hmm.
is like, I mean, that's sort of like the expert,
level of
coursework
DIY, right? Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
exactly. And it can be everything from, I've got some DIY adventures planned here in the future in the next few years. And, one of them will be a DIY jungle adventure, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's something that I've experienced, but only through a guided trip. And like, I kind of like to take some of that angling prowess and outdoor prowess. Like,
Yeah.
when you're talking about some of those trips, whether it's something like an overnight float trip, you said you've done the Smith River, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a great DIY trip, right? Because there's great fishing in there, but it can be tricky and the water levels up and
Yeah.
down
And it's
and,
camping, and
and it's
you got to
camping.
know how to raft and manage your raft at night. Water
That's
levels rise. You got
that's
big
right.
rains. Oh, well, how did I stay dry for X number of days?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. And I think, a couple other things in my history, like I'm sort of an adventurer from a young age. My parents, they're both still living. I love them. They've just kind of like created this adventuresome, uh, spirit, and like me and both my brothers actually. And so very early on, I liked to do things outdoors. I was sort of, I was already fishing heavily. I was hiking quite a bit, and I'd done a little bit of hunting. And when I got my learner's permit, which is really
yeah.
apropos because my daughter just got her learning permit. So
Uh-oh.
I asked my parents, I said, hey, we were living in Baltimore, Maryland, where I went to high school.
Okay.
And we were living in Maryland. And I said, hey, could I borrow the family car, which was a big Dodge Ram van? And I want to drive to Alaska next summer. And my parents, I think about my daughter asking me that, and like, only because I had the parents I had would I even consider it. But I was like, they were like, well, I don't know. And then they talked about it, obviously. And they said, well, if you can, like, we're not going to pay for this. If you can make enough money to go do this, we wholeheartedly support you.
That's so
So
cool.
every day after school, I took the bus to the local mall, and I worked in the nice restaurant in the mall. I started as a dishwasher. I was a grill assistant. I was the salad boy, but I would do my homework in the food court, and then I would work, and I would work till like 11 o'clock every day. And I am a saver. People that know me, I've been called Parsimonious Pete for many years. I'm a real saver. I don't like spending money. I still drive a 2001 Toyota pickup with almost 300,000 miles on it. I won't upgrade that till it dies. I also just love reusing things and whatnot. I'm a terrible consumer, honestly.
Yeah.
And that may mean, I think that adds to why maybe I'm a good marketer, because I'm sort of the reluctant marketer.
Right. You're
I don't
selling to
really,
yourself, which is hard.
yeah, I really don't like consumerism,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like I really like that we can use things and keep them going and maintain them and rebuild them and build them ourselves and DIY it, right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of in my vein. So anyway, went to Alaska, made the money. My parents gulped. Me and a buddy drove to Alaska. We spent 8 weeks in Alaska, hiking, fishing,
Oh gosh.
doing all kinds of things. I was charged by a grizzly bear when I was there in the backcountry of Denali at 16. It was a super frightening experience, but also just kind of a crazy experience.
Yeah.
We were hiking up this, so they bus you into the to Denali,
Yeah.
and we got off at this creek called the Tolklat, and we're hiking up, and this is pre-bear spray. This is before really we had bear bells. But
Yeah.
I know a lot more now that maybe I wouldn't have been in this situation, but it was hard. The
Yeah.
wind was blowing right in our faces, right? This bear couldn't smell us. And we came around the corner, big alder thickets, that you couldn't see around, even though there were no trees. We were going to go up and cross this glacier and come back down the other side. We're spending, nearly not quite 3 weeks in the wilderness. We come up, and there are two baby cubs about 50 yards away. And then there was a mama another 50 yards behind them. She saw us. She came and closed the distance and was on us really quickly. And she came to about 15 feet away on her first charge. She charged us 4 times, and she started snapping her teeth. She threw her shoulders forward, and she hop back and forth and start. It really reminded me way more of like footage of gorillas than it did
Yeah.
what I thought a grizzly bear charge would look like. And we started, you have to watch a video before you go in
Yeah.
there. We were backing up, whoa, grizzly bear, whoa, grizzly bear. And she did that 4 times. And she would push her cubs up the hill and come back and push us further. And on we were standing in the river on the last pass, and she was actually coming down to do a big kind of circle. But when she hit the edge of the water, so much water erupted that the guy I was with went down prone in this cold water. And we could see where the water was coming out of the glacier. And he goes down like this in the water. He kind of floats downstream a little bit, kind of kicking
Yeah.
and whatnot. And he later said that was the scariest moment of his life, because he didn't know if he was going to pop up and see me being mauled, or a grizzly tearing into him or whatnot, just not having that. But it was a really, it was an intense experience. I was probably too young to be as terrified as I should have been. But anyway, nonetheless,
you didn't have the experience to understand how serious it really was.
Exactly. But, this trip, and just, we did a lot of car camping, and we did a lot of fishing, fly fishing for salmon. And we kept some salmon and cooked them. And it was just an amazing, amazing adventure. And it kind of had spurred me on to my next thing, which was the day after graduating from high school. My parents drove me up to Maine, and I hopped on the Appalachian Trail. And for the next 6 months, I thru hiked the Appalachian Trail. I turned 18 on the trail, by myself. I can still remember eating a turkey tetrazzini Mountain House, which Mountain House was a newer brand back then.
Right. It was just the tiny little guys, right?
Tiny little guy. And I went south, which is not the way most people go. So it was a very solitary trip. I would spend weeks by myself. And I think it was so impactful on me and really developed me into a very strong individual. And I couldn't be happier for the experience. And, I think that kind of led me on to really wanting to adventure. And I really found fly fishing as my way to adventure. And as I've sort of progressed through my stages of life, like, it's been one thing that's always been with me. And I've been really, kind of just so happy to have that in my life. And I really do like doing it myself. And I love everything from, even just trying a new stream in my area, right? Like, okay, so what's happening here, and problem solving. And now I come in with this kind of wealth of information. And like, actually one of my favorite parts of it now is like when it's not easy, right? And when I make these presuppositions and they're wrong, and I have to go back to the drawing board. I'm like, why the heck can't I catch these fish? They're only 12-inch trout. Like, how come I get and why is it bugging me so much would be the other thing. And, I think that there can be a competitive nature in it. I think that's healthy if you keep it to yourself, right?
I was just going to say, you have this, it seems like a very self-competitiveness nature. You described it in both of those stories of like these larger accomplishments and sometimes on your own. Where do you think that originated from as a child?
Well, I think part of it part of it was the trail, right? Like, it is a really difficult thing to do, to hike the Appalachian Trail. I was the youngest to do it that year. There was no cell phones. Like, these things didn't exist.
Didn't have internet.
Didn't have internet. It was a really isolating experience. And I think that was so important, because the only way there was no one monitoring. I didn't have followers. There was no
You're
external.
doing it for yourself.
Yeah, it was no external. So I think it made me very, very much, it's like, I don't care what we all have. I think this is a blanket statement. We all have cares about what other people think about us, whether we want to admit it or not. But in angling, I don't really care what people think about me and my angling ability. It has no real consequence, right?
Right.
The only person who matters in my angling experience is me, right? And I think it's very selfish in that way, but it's also I think it's really healthy that the bar is really set by me, and I'm the one who wants to accomplish it, and I'm the one who's disappointed by it. I'm also the one that gets all the glory from it.
It's very
And
powerful.
it is.
It's very powerful to have that
Mm,
perception of yourself. And that's all that really matters. Because, and especially I think with social media these days, so
yeah.
many people have performance anxiety based on what others may think.
Oh boy.
And I think there's a natural aspect of that to, hey, fishermen have been catching fish telling lies for years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's natural, okay, to want to impress somebody by what you've accomplished. But
Yeah.
I think also there should be an internal limiter for you.
No question.
And I use the word should, but a healthy way is really have an internal limiter that allows you to say, you know what, I'm happy with what I did. What I
Yeah.
accomplished is what I set out to do, or I didn't set out to do. And you know what, I'm going to try and still accomplish that. Or that goal isn't reachable for me, but you know what, I'm going to reset my goals, because
Yeah.
people do that every single day of their life
Yeah.
in all assets, in all
Yeah.
areas. And fishing's no different. It
It's
really isn't. It's like my mom used to say, go climb a rock, kid, you know? And she used to laugh because it was always a comment of go climb a rock. Like, you got nothing better else to do than tease me or be in the kitchen. You go climb a rock. And then later on in life, at college, I started rock climbing and it became a career of mine. And she goes,
right.
I never would have thought you would have climbed rocks for a career, you know, like how amazing is that, you know?
So Christian, with rock, I've done some rock climbing when I was younger, and my girls love it.
Mhm.
And did you find, because I, in kind of talking through what I love about fishing, I do love those small accomplishments. Like each fish is an accomplishment, and like I think that that's a validation that I really like, right? And I
Mhm.
like getting it from nature, right? Like that's all of my validations, or not all of them, but many of them come from nature, and I think that it's kind of like it's this, gosh, how would I put it? I mean, it's just something that is unfeeling, and doesn't have any judgment, and it's just a set of rules that I can kind of a set of things that I can try to figure out that are very can be very scientific. And
Mhm.
basically, that's the other thing about angling. Like, it's got a scientific base. It has a technical ability that you have to have, has to have this problem solving. But then I truly believe this, there's some mysticism in it, especially if
Mhm.
you spend time steelheading. You have to go on hunches. You get funny feelings. You
Yes.
get inspiration that you didn't know where it came from. Like, and it's maybe it's happening subconsciously, probably is, but it's like some of those choices that you
Yeah.
make, especially after being stifled, they come from like the gut. They come from, some of it's
Yeah. Yeah.
experience, some of it's something, but like some of it's just like, I got a hunch, I got a funny feeling. And like when those things come through, it is like magic happening.
I think I call it the fisherman's placebo effect,
Mm,
right? Like
yeah.
you walking along and all of a sudden you like take the pill and
Hmm.
it's the fisherman's pill. And it's like, I, there's got to be a monster in there.
Yeah.
There just has to be,
Yeah.
you know, and you fish it. There's something uniqueness about that. And I like
Oh,
how you describe,
love it.
like, there's this problem solving. I mean, climbing was very much the same for me, right? There was a
Yeah.
problem solving. There was the nature aspect. One thing I think you missed that I
Mhm.
really enjoy about both is there is an infinitesimal supply of problems to solve.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for
It
sure.
never ends, and it's never the same.
Mhm.
Today, if I'm climbing, it was stickier and grabbier than the other day, or it was wet, or, you know, the hold broke or whatever. You know, fishing, same thing. The
Mhm.
water's a little bit higher, the current's slightly different, the
Mhm.
temperature's slightly off. There's a different hatch going on. I mean, you just go down, there's so many different scenarios that you can run. And I think that's where it gets um, very much into
Similar.
that problem solving and that reward
Mhm.
aspect, because you're going through your file cabinet, your repertoire of moves, I call it, and you're
Mhm.
flipping through your file cabinet. Okay, I got this card. I got the squalla hatch. Okay, okay, I got the high water scenario. I got this scenario. Ooh, I got the late day scenario. Okay, oh, we're all set up. All right, I'm putting my things in together, and then I observe this, and that was new. Oh, new input. Boom, 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 boom. And decisions are
Mhm.
made, and
Mhm.
and sometimes they're made subconsciously, and sometimes they're made very consciously. And sometimes it all comes together and boom, you hit the fish and you land it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's such, I think, a unique and inspiring adventure for yourself
Yeah.
that it makes it enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you made it enjoyable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's different because some things I think can just happen organically
Yeah.
in front of you
Yep.
and become very enjoyable. Whereas I think in fly fishing, you have a very big part in the enjoyment that you get out of it. And a
Absolutely.
lot of that is not having specific agendas sometimes can
Mm-hmm.
be a great example of like, I'm just going fishing. You know what? Whatever happens, I don't care.
Yeah.
I fished with some friends the other day. It was brutal wind and cold. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely brutal wind and cold. And they were worried about getting into fish. I said, guys, we don't have an agenda. What if we just stand and walk and make a few casts and we go, it's cold and we leave? And ultimately that's what ended up happening is we tried a few things. It was so windy. Your indicator, I should say, was literally
Yeah.
ripping off of the water. And I went, it's futile. It's not even fun, guys. Are you having fun fishing?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
we walked around, we observed, we looked at things, we talked about how we had fished this place before, that place before, and what it would be like this summer and some other adventures we could have. And it ended up being a great day,
Yeah.
even though the
Yeah.
weather was just absolutely horrible, wind and snow, I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, I think tampering those expectations, right? Like a day on a stretch that I know really well, stretch of river that I know really well, but I know it's not going to be a good day. Either it's too pressure, the water's too hot, the water's too cold, the weather's too done this, the weather's done that. But I do set those like I really am goal oriented. So like I'll set those
Yeah.
expectations like, sometimes exact, but it's funny, like as a guide, it was all about managing expectations, managing other people's expectations.
Yeah.
What can we expect to catch? Well, you have to like read them and understand and know like there's so many
Yes.
variables to solve. And I think that's one of the things I loved about it. I just love that. And then I also love that like I mean, the number of stories I could tell you about the relationships that I gained through fishing.
Oh, yeah.
And sadly, many of my clients have passed on. But like even their kids, like, I can think of a couple of circumstances where, one of my clients, when he passed away, his sons and the only fishing they'd ever done was with me. They never practiced. They were, and I know he'll know who he is if he listens to this. They know they're terrible fishermen. They were the most pleasant people. We had the best time, and they caught extremely large fish. They always came kind of at the wrong times, which I think are the right
Right.
times, right? Water's up a little bit. This is that. There's not a lot of pressure. The fish are moving around. Like you just got to figure it out, and you just got to stick with it, and you got to meet them where they are in their fishing game, and like not browbeat them that they're not better at fishing. Like, who
Right.
cares? It's your thing. Like, it's their
Yeah.
thing. Like and we had so many wonderful times. And they said, hey, we would love if you sent us something. He said before he died, he would love to have a box of your flies in the coffin with him. And I
Whoa.
still
Mind
tear
blown.
up.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, wow. He
I
said some
had
of the
that
best times.
impact on a person.
Yes. Yes, right. And
Yeah.
like for me, like I love them and I looked forward to them coming, but I was like that was so important. It's like the best times of our life were in your boat. I was like,
Mhm.
wow. And like I think that to taking that in, and like I think seasoned veteran guides, like first off, you're not gonna stick with it if you don't like people, and if you don't
Mhm.
like problem solving, and if you don't mean even down to the tangles. There's like, oh, you must get so sick of tangles. I'm like, no, just something you do. And I saw each one as a different
Little
problem.
problem. Yeah.
Little problem, and like enjoy it. And if I think that's sort of a message for anyone. It's like enjoy what you do, because we spend a lot of time working, and so you better enjoy what you do for
Yep.
work, because if you don't, you're going to get angry, disgruntled, and
Burn
probably
out.
depressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I sort of
The-
created my life around fishing because it's something that I love to do, and if I can do it on the company dime, great. If I can't, I take time to
DIY it.
DIY it. And some of these trips that I'm now preparing for, like I love it. They have a long tail now. Some
Mm.
of the DIY expedition trips have a long tail. Like, where am I going? What am I doing? Like I kind of don't want to like some of them I don't want to talk about yet because I kind of don't want anyone else to do it. Not that I don't want anyone else to do it.
No, I get it, man. It's an internal intrinsic value, right?
Exactly. But
It
some of
really
them are
is.
like, like species, like bonefish, right? Like there's some opportunity to do some DIY bone fishing. And the bonefish that I've caught myself, that I've researched, and like, boy, I'm a map guy. I in another
Mhm.
life, I would have been a cartographer. And, I bet not a day goes, I know a day doesn't go by that I'm not looking at a map, right? Like, where's
Mhm.
that? What is, like, what's around there? And like, ooh, what
How does
about
the
this?
tidal swing change
Yeah,
into that? And right.
exactly. Or like, yeah, like where's the tide coming out of? Like, how can I get to that? Like, if I went to, this place in the Bahamas, like, could I access through there? And like,
Right,
what would
right.
I
Is that
need to
private
prepare for a
property,
fish?
public property? Are there going to
E-
be, there looks like there's a
Exactly.
break on the other side. Am I going to get interrupted by surfers or, yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
there's like all those little elements that are so cool to
E-
research and have fun
Exactly. And
with.
like understanding like an element from this small, like a bug or a rock, or like what kind of gravel or strata, to the Google Earth view of like, how does this tidal flat work? Where does the water
Hmm.
come in? Where does it go out? Where's the water? Like, I want to, like, as the tide's receding, I want to enter here and work this way
Yeah.
because the water is going to be going this way. And I want to, and those fish are going to be working maybe against the current, or maybe they're going to be
Yep.
sliding out. So I want to,
And you see
where are they going to
tidal
slide?
flow maps, right? Now I'm looking
Yes.
at the tidal flow map and I'm understanding here's the
Yeah.
feeder. This is the conveyor belt that we talk about in trout fishing. It's actually
Yes.
happening in saltwater. It's so cool.
Exactly. And what might they be eating? Let me do a little research. Who's been there? What's happened? And and like when you gain the when you spend the time to do that, I think it's really exceptional. I love taking trips with my longtime fishing buddies. All of them actually at this point have been guides.
Hmm.
Some are still guides. They all at least spent 2 decades in the boat. So there's a lot of knowledge between us, but we're kind of like the A team. We all have our like different roles. Like
Yeah.
you see my fly tying stuff back here. I don't tie that much anymore.
Right.
I wish I did. It's just
You
one
know
of
enough
those
to be
things.
dangerous, though.
Yeah, I know
So
enough to
when
be
you have
dangerous.
a guy that does tie for you,
Yep.
you
Yeah.
know exactly what you want, or you
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
tell the detail that was put into it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like when
Oh,
you go on your jungle trip, that's going to be a big one, right? You
it's
don't
going to
want to
be a
take
big one.
garbage
Woo.
flies with you because if
Yeah.
you have a couple
Or
flies that are
garbage
working good
equipment,
and it's
right?
two, three
Mhm.
fish and it's done, you're going, oh man, I'm all the way down. Well, how am I going to get another one of these?
How am I going to get another fly in the jungle? Which is
Yeah.
also like, how am I going to camp in the jungle safely by
Right.
myself?
How
Like,
am I staying out of the ants? How am I staying out of the water? What about the other
exactly,
bugs? Yeah, it's really cool.
exactly. And so those are all those elements that you can add into them. And having a team that has different expertise, right? Like we always talk about, like, who you would want to be in a foxhole with. And like, one of my best buddies is a great fly tyer. So like, for example, we went down to Pyramid Lake in, kind of like in the midst of COVID. We're all going
Hmm.
crazy. And we're like, we got to get somewhere. Never been there. Wintertime, these
Yeah.
guys, and so he like did the research and tied all the flies, right? Like I sort of figured out where we would go and stay, and like maybe a little bit about where we should fish. Another guy is like really good on gear. He's like, well, this is the gear we're going to need. Like, how do we get ladders and that kind of stuff? And so we had this like the A team, and then we got down there, and like when we caught some of those fish, it was pretty cool, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Like on his flies with our technique and like our thing, and like that's an easy DIY trip
Yeah.
also. Like
It is.
so,
Yeah.
which is great. I think it's like if someone's like, well, geez, I really want to do a destination DIY trip, like not to beat up Pyramid Lake, but like that's a really good
It's a
one.
great destination place because
Absolutely.
you're siloed in Pyramid,
Yeah.
because it's on the reservation, et cetera.
Yeah.
The other thing
Yeah.
that's really cool is you talked about, hey, I have this A team of guys
Yeah.
that I fish with. Not
Yeah.
everybody has that,
It's
but
true.
your A team is your research too, right? So
Yeah.
I can go to the maps, I can read more articles, I can call a local fly shop, I can
Yeah.
see someone on Instagram that has caught
Yeah.
big fish and reach out to them and say, hey man, I'm going down here, it's DIY, I would love to just bend your ear for 15 minutes.
Yeah. I
And
can listen to podcasts.
you can listen
right?
to podcasts. Some of those things are like, you get so much information and you feel like this expert, like you're really qualified. And then you talk to a local, or you talk to someone who really knows the area, and your mind just gets blown of like, oh my gosh, I got 30 more things I got to look into. And then you go do that. And then when you get there, it's almost as if you've been there before.
Yeah.
And that is a unique experience in itself of like, oh yeah, we should be going down right here. There should be a break. And you know what, we should have a swell around 5 o'clock, and boy, that's going to be bringing bait in. And you know, if we're on time, man, this could be really red hot. And a lot of times it comes together, man.
Yeah. And I mean, not to sort of get back to our brand, but like, that's one of the inspirations for the Cheeky Schoolie tournament, right? This is now the largest fly fishing tournament in the world. And one of the reasons that we think it's been so successful is that it's really based on the DIY. Like, the entry fee is, you know, nominal, and you get more value back in your captain's bag than you have to
put in your entry fee,
in your entry fee, and you get tickets, you get raffle tickets where you could win some like amazing prizes. And I think it's one of the reasons we have some of the best sponsors in the industry: Sims, Costa, Yeti, Thompson. Anyway, one of the things that we love about it, it's teams of 2, it's wade fish only. So you don't have to have a boat, you don't have to have a guide, you don't have to have anything. You could show up with, I mean, you don't even really have to have. It could
be your 6 weight to your 8 weight, and you're fine. I mean,
exactly. And like, it's also one of those things, like, the more you put into it, probably the better you'll do. But like, there's, people have won who live on the Cape. People have won who don't live on the Cape. People have won who are very seasoned anglers. Other people have just found because it's catch, photo, and release, your longest 4 striped bass as a team, right? So it's very simple rules, and there's so much. I mean, we cap it. It sells out in like, this year it was 10 days and all of the slots were taken. And, we've got a waiting list. And all these people have come back year after year. It's also about the camaraderie.
I was just going to say, because you can show up. That's a tournament that you could show up in what I would call show up and throw up. Like, you show up the day early, you go to the party, the gathering, you meet a couple of people, you can gather beta right then and there of like what people are doing. Maybe go to the fly shop in the morning and grab some things, and like, you're off to the races, or not even do that, but you're off to the races and you're fishing. The fishing's the fun part. And then you come back and you're like, oh, I didn't get anything today. Or, ooh, we got 2 nice, a little bit better than schoolies. And, you're like stoked. I mean, it's so easy. It's made easy.
It is way easy. And like, there's so many, like you're saying, so many things to learn. Like, I also think that Cape Cod in itself is a premier DIY destination, because there's so much to learn there. The access is incredible, right? Like, anywhere you can park, you can walk as far as your legs will take you up and down. There are no private beaches there. Massachusetts has done an incredible job with stream access, as we've done in Montana as well. And, you can fish for the easier fish or the harder fish. You can have all these situations. You can fish a creek mouth with sand eels. You can fish off of a jetty. You can fish, the flats, which are obviously super fun and as incredible of flats fishing as you'll find anywhere on earth, right?
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got a 20, 30, 40-pound striper, I mean, 40 is a stretch, but, let's even say 10 or 20-pound striper that's on a flat, that's in less than knee-deep water on, just bright sand, and they're moving in and working. Like,
you can see them working bait. Yeah, exactly.
It's so cool. I mean, it's a really, really fun, cool experience. I mean, there's estuaries, there's salt ponds, there's all this stuff, and you can be an expert on one thing. You could be an expert on an eel pond, and that's all you fish, and you could do that your entire life and be uber successful and know nothing about
all the other
how
things.
You fish, all these other ways to fish. So it's a really great, it's fun place to DIY.
And what's crazy about it is the DIY side of hiking and catching striper. I was just talking to somebody about this just yesterday. And I said, 20-pound fish on a boat, you almost like shake it off, like, oh yeah, another fish. But in DIY, 20-pound fish, you're just like, oh, that was a good one. That was really nice. I worked hard for that. There's the work, I think, that goes into it. That's really cool. Peter, you're obviously full of stories. You could
Yeah.
talk about DIY all the day.
Yeah.
You have tons of advice on that scenario that we talked about, but we did talk about a scenario of a tip for the day I wanted to get to, and
Yes.
that's the creating an outdoor kid through whether it's parenting or mentorship. And you had a
Mhm.
couple of ideas that you wanted to share there.
Yeah.
So let's dive into that.
Absolutely. Well, so I guess I come by this naturally in that I have two daughters who I think are pretty incredible, kind of outdoor people at this point. They're younger, they're still learning, obviously. But in the same way I talked about, guides, great guides really meeting an angler where they are, I think the same it can be true, with teaching children how to just be in the outdoors and like specifically how to train them to fly fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're always like, oh boy, it'd be great. We have these visions in our heads of like our kids getting really into it and like, that being the thing that we do together. But in reality, a lot of times that doesn't work out, right? And sometimes it's because, sometimes it's just not their thing.
Well,
But so
yeah, and I think,
Mhm.
sorry to interrupt, but I think one of it is we talked a lot about we're problem solvers.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there are times when kids love to be problem solvers, but there are times when they love to just catch fish and go have
it's
fun,
true. A-
right? And they don't want to
Absolutely.
be a problem solver. They just want to yank in bluegill or whatever it is,
Yep.
trout, one after the other.
That exactly, and you need them to have those experiences to kind of get them maybe to their next level of angling
Mm-hmm.
experience. I think the worst thing you can do is force them to do it and force them to do it in bad weather. Like you hear
Yeah.
the horror stories of like, well, I fished when I was a kid, but my dad made me go out in the boat and it's freezing cold and I hated doing that, or like getting up so early and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I think, kind of game of get the gamification of fly fishing for me has been something that I've utilized with my kids to
Tell us a little bit
enjoy.
about that. Yeah. Tell us a
Yeah,
little.
so there's a couple things that I've done that I think are fun ways to get them engaged. One, I mean, I live here in Montana. It's cold in the wintertime. It's a lot of downtime. Even if you ski or whatnot, there's a lot of dark days,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to keep young kids, especially. So when my kids are, you know, 5, 6, 7, in that age range, I developed this game with them. So we had those practice casting rods, the short ones that are maybe 3 feet long that have the
Mm-hmm.
yarn on the end. And so we would go and look through pictures, either, you know, daddy's fishing pictures or like fishing books or even online. And like we would find these fish and we talk about them a little bit. Oh, that's a cool fish. Like, oh yeah, that's one that I fished for. Like, so, and then we'd sit down and they would draw, like I would draw an outline and they would color in the fish. So like a rooster fish, for example, or maybe a
Mm-hmm.
trout or whatever might be on for that day. And we have a home laminator. We're kind of crafty people, so we would laminate these things, and I would put a little patch of Velcro, the hook part of the Velcro on there, and then I would have them wait in a corner of the house, and I would go and place these pictures of these fish in different areas, and then we would creep around as if we
Ah,
were stalking the
stalking the
fish.
fish. Yes.
Yeah, and then like when they'd see one, they say, "I see a fish, Daddy." I'm like, "Oh, right over there, rooster fish," and they'd have to cast to it and kind of hook the fish. And they got really good at it, so I
Yeah.
had to
You're
like
like,
back
geez,
the
that was
distance
quick.
up, or put them around the corner. But it really helped develop their cast. But also, like it was learning about the fish and creating the photographs and having this stalking experience and having the casting,
Yeah.
so they started to get what I loved about fishing. And, I think that helped them kind of, engage in it. And then, I also like, I would try to take them out when fishing was good. I would
Yeah.
try to put them in, and I wouldn't like, and this was really hard for me and I'm still not great at it. Like if it's a good day of fishing and they catch one fish and they're like, I'm done. I have to
Mm.
be good with that. Like
Yeah.
I
I'm
have
like,
to be
okay.
okay with them and like I just want to X. I just want to net tadpoles. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
want, I want to jump out and swim. I want to do and like it's kind of created, it's really helped me in that our river trips now aren't solely ever focused on fly fishing. I
Right.
just know it's just not going to be as fun for them, therefore not as fun for me. So
Right.
now I'm seeing the world through my daughter's eyes, and but I do this thing now with them that we call it the fish book. And so I give them a little book each year, and we talk about, like, well, how many fish do you think you want to catch this year? How many do you want to catch, right?
Yeah. Right.
And they're like, oh, so this year, my youngest daughter, who's actually really loves fishing, and we did a lot last fall, and we've got this spot we can't wait to get back to because she there's big fish in this spot. She hooked a number of nice fish pushing that 20-inch boundary, and she's a
Oh,
little
wow.
tiny little girl, and
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
lost them all. She caught a bunch of like 16s and
But the
14s and
big ones,
12s
she
in there.
didn't
Oh,
quite.
but she remembers where they are. She remembers what they ate, right? She's like, oh, do you have that bug that they ate the last one? I'm like, I sure do,
Yeah.
right?
That's right. Yep.
So, but I have this book, and so we come up with a number. I write the number in Sharpie at the front. So this year she wants to catch 100 fish. A lot of fish.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it's a pretty good, but
That's a
throughout
good
the year,
number.
it's a good
Yeah.
number. Like, it's a stretch goal, I think, for her. But like, it also, she'll be like, yeah, we got, and I'll be like, hey, fishing's good. Like, you might be able to knock off 15 fish here
Yeah.
today,
Right.
But each fish that she catches, she has to document. So she wants me to take a pic. I've taken a picture of every one of the fish she's caught.
Oh, cool.
Because she takes the picture and she draws a picture of the fish. And she says where she caught it, what fish it was, what it ate, and the river
She's
it was.
the diary that we as adults all talk about doing.
Yes.
She's actually doing.
She's doing it. And she's going to keep it. It's really, really cool. And on this day, she catches 15 fish. Like, we have to go back, like, oh, what did that? She writes what they ate and all that stuff. And so, and then she's like me. She's like me in a lot of ways. She's very different from me in a lot of ways. So what she wanted, I'm like, so what do you want if you do this? The first year we did it, first year we did it, she was 8. And I said, what do you want? She goes, cash. So
I need that new sage rod. I'm ready.
Exactly. Who knows what she's probably saving up for a DIY trip. I don't know about, but and my elder daughter, she really loves the experience of being in the outdoors. So she wants a book. Excuse me. But she likely won't. I mean, she's not obsessed by that number the way my younger one is.
Yeah, it's funny how they all have their own personalities and different goals and objectives and why. What is important? Oh, I want my nails done. That's why. Yeah. You're like, whoa, okay,
exactly,
sweet.
Well, she loves fly tying, so that's her thing. She's very creative. She's a musician, so that really attaches to her.
Very cool. Yeah, you got a little bit of a cough going here. Mm-hmm. I get it, Peter. You've been talking for quite a while now. We've covered so much, man, and you've got great stories. I think, we'd do a little bit of a bow to your parents here. They've done a great job of raising you. You still obviously have a lot of that kid inside of you, that adventuresome kid. It's apparent in the small conversation that we've had. And boy, I've really appreciated it quite a bit. I'm sure our audience will as well. Thanks so much for being on the show, sharing this whole uniqueness of the DIY. And like you said, there's different types of DIY and stages, and go explore those things. Don't be afraid to ask questions and get back to that problem solving aspect. And then of course the kid stuff is always super valuable, because I find myself, meeting people with kids and go, no, I'll take the kids out fishing today, and you'll learn and try different things. So really cool, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it's fun to inspire them just to be out and let them go where their path takes them, like, don't try to reel them in too hard, I guess. But it's successful for me so far. We have a long way to go, certainly, as a family, but we really value our time in the outdoors together, whether that's fishing or floating or hiking or anything that we do together. So anyway, couldn't be more happy.
Yeah. Well, really cool. Thanks, Peter. Again, if you guys want to get a hold of Peter, go check out North Point Brands. You probably contact him through your Instagram account, I would assume, if you reached out.
Well, it's interesting, right? So just a real quick note on Instagram. We talked about that earlier, and that sort of FOMO that people get about catching fish. And so I don't personally engage in that anymore, because I realized that the pictures I was posting were causing other people angst of like, whoa, look at all these great things that he's doing, he's catching. Why am I not doing that? And I felt that myself, like everybody's caught a golden Dorado but me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Pete, like back up. You've had
Yeah.
a wonderful fishing career, and like meet yourself where you are, right?
Yeah.
Like really, not don't want to be like another angler out there, or have your own experiences. So, but they can contact me through, Cheeky Fishing,
Yeah.
Lingo Outdoors, Rep Your Water, or North Point Brands. And I'm always happy to share any tips or tricks that I might have picked up over the course of a lifetime of angling.
Yeah. Well, great, Peter. I really appreciate it. Again, thanks for being on the show. Guys, follow us on the website, ffipodcast.com, and really check us out on YouTube, Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. You had mentioned the tips and tricks. We got tons of tips and tricks on there on YouTube, as well as our some of our episode information and other things. So it'd be great to see you guys on there as well. And Peter, thanks again for being on the show. We'll see all of you next week, and we'll talk to you soon. Tight lines and wet nets. Fly Fishing Insider Podcast is teamed up with Fly Fish Finder app to revolutionize your fishing adventures. Save time and unlock the ultimate experience with access to 55,000 trout streams, precise bridge data, thousands of trails, and detailed species locations. Elevate your angling with real-time maps, top camping spots, and connect with local fly shops for expert tips. This is only a little bit of what is available on the app. Discover all of it on the Fly Fish Finder app, another tool for getting better at catching fish anytime, anywhere, and for any species.